Waiting in the wings, if that fails, is a consortium willing to plough new money into the club. Mike Culvin reports from the Valley.
Whether the turnstiles will ever reopen for business at the Valley is in the balance tonight. Charlton's chances of survival have fluctuated during a day of hectic behind-the-scenes activity. The Sunley Group, one of Britain's biggest development companies, are ready to invest £1 million in the club. Their consortium, which includes former Charlton chairman Richard Collins, has agreed to buy the Valley from Michael Glixton, another former chairman who's expected back in Britain from Australia tomorrow morning. Mark Hullier, the current chairman, does not figure in the consortium's takeover plans, but he's continued his fight for a legal reprieve today and is due in the High Court again on Friday morning to appeal against yesterday's winding-up order. Manager Lenny Lawrence, the man in the middle, has sympathy and faith in Hullier's judgment.
I think the chairman knows what he's doing and he's had a lot of problems, but I think that whatever is necessary to ensure the future of this club, whatever it meant to him personally, whatever he might lose, I think he would do it to ensure that we survived.
A representative from the official receiver's office visited the Valley late this afternoon to assess the club's financial situation. A steady stream of fans phoned the club today, offering donations from £1 to £1,000. One, anticipating closure, wanted to buy the goalposts. Lawrence praised the club will need them.
If it went under, it would mean as much, if not more, to me than to anybody else. I've got no greater desire or wish at the moment in football than to continue to manage this club and see it established on a sound financial basis and march on from there, and maybe in 3 or 4 years' time to get to the First Division.
So, in your heart of hearts, do you think you'll be at Blackburn playing on Saturday?
Yes, I do. I've got a hunch that we'll be there and everything will be all right at the end of the day.
Well, the latest news is that the official receiver has taken formal charge of the club. The gates at the Valley have been locked and the staff have been given notice. The players' contracts have been transferred to the Football League, and if they wish to train, they'll not be paid. There are now just 2 hopes left for survival: the winding-up order to be lifted on Friday.
The breakthrough minimal. Mark Hullier on the left took over the club 2 years ago and took over its debts. He thought the signing of Danish international Allan Simonsen would bring back the crowds and gate receipts. He was wrong, and Simonson's vast wages plunged Charlton into further financial trouble. The Dane went home. A leading football chairman says mergers are the answer for small clubs with money problems.
There are far too many clubs in the league, and if they will not accept, if the fans will not allow mergers, as they obviously weren't happy about Oxford and Reading, then they will have to witness the closure by the courts of clubs, by the revenue or the banks. There are too many clubs.
Charlton are now said to owe £1 million. Their boss has lodged an appeal against the decision, so there's still a chance the Valley will open again. Simon Cole, ITN Sport, Charlton Athletic.
The official receiver in their final attempt to save the club. The consortium, headed by former Charlton chairman Richard Collins, have been told that the Football League may, after all, give them breathing space by agreeing to postpone tomorrow's match at Blackburn. But first, they must prove to the receiver, who's now in charge of the bankrupt club, that they're capable of meeting Charlton's debts of more than £1 million. John Andrew reports from the receiver's office in Holborn.
What could become Charlton's high noon is being played out behind these doors. The new consortium is trying to convince the official receiver that it can take over the club, pay off a substantial slice of its £1.5 million debts and keep it alive under a new name, Charlton 84. It's believed the Football League is now willing to postpone Charlton's match at Blackburn tomorrow to give time for any takeover to be worked out. They're also prepared to relax what the consortium have regarded as an impossible set of conditions. The league, it seems, are now willing to accept written guarantees rather than immediate payment of the club.
Appeal. If it fails, they'll be the first Football League club to go to the wall since 1962. It's not yet clear whether Charlton will play on Saturday or whether they've made their last league appearance. Here's Stephen Chambers.
The High Court was told that Charlton Athletic owe nearly £160,000 in tax, and the judge said that after 11 court adjournments to find a financial solution, he had no doubt that the club is insolvent. Mr Justice Mervyn Davies said that if there was another adjournment, he didn't think the situation would improve. He added, "It's my duty to make a winding-up order. I do so with regret, as it may mean the end of this famous club." It was claimed the tax is not Charlton's only debt. They were said to owe more than £1 million to other creditors, including the former chairman Michael Glickstein's company. After the hearing, a tearful Charlton chairman, Mark Hullier, said he's appealing against the order. "I'm not closing the book on Charlton," he said. "We will try to get the money by Friday. The Inland Revenue are being unreasonable." But Graham Kelly, the Football League secretary, is not optimistic that the club can now be saved.
The man in the driving seat, the man to whom a lot of the questions will have to be directed, will be the official receiver. The official receiver, I understand, will receive a copy of today's court order, and it will be up to him as to whether, in effect, the shutters are put up at the Valley and Charlton pack up as of now, or whether he feels there are any conditions by which he can get some money for the creditors by carrying on trading. And to do that, he would have to meet the league's terms, and he would have to have somebody interested in putting up a lot of money.
To go bankrupt since Accrington Stanley in 1962. The second division club was today wound up in the High Court because it owed £160,000 in tax. The Inland Revenue refused to accept Chairman Mark Hullier's final attempt to put together a rescue package. The only hopes for salvation for Charlton are that Mr. Hullier successfully appeals, or that a saviour can be found at the last minute to pay the club's total debts of more than £1 million. The club's demise would mean matches already played being declared void, thus depriving the second division leaders Sheffield Wednesday and Chelsea of 4 points each. It would also lead to one extra promotion place in both the third and fourth divisions. Edward Sturton reports on the death of a famous club.
Wembley 1947. Charlton Athletic, in their second consecutive FA Cup final, beat Burnley 1-0 to take the world's most prestigious trophy. It was performances like this that put Charlton among the top clubs in the heyday of English football. But like so many clubs, Charlton's fortunes have steadily declined over the last 15 years. Their ground, the biggest in the country, once regularly attracted 60,000 fans. Now the crowd is only around 5,000 a game, and the steady decline in takings at the gate soon took its toll on the club's finances. A new chairman, Mark Hullier on the left, took over 2 years ago, and his first action was to sign up one of the world's star names, Alan Simonsen. The Danish player had been European Footballer of the Year, and Hullier gambled that he'd pay his wages of £1,500 a week with performances like this.
And maybe here's a break that Simonsen can exploit. Still Simonsen. Can he find the shot? He can!
There was an initial surge of interest, but the crowds fell away again. Simonsen did well, but his wages couldn't be paid for long, and before the season was out, the Prince of Denmark was on his way home. Hullier, at 28, the youngest chairman in the league, was left with severe financial headaches. He couldn't meet the tax bills, and he had another, even bigger worry. When he bought the club off Michael Glixton, the former chairman retained ownership of the ground and leased it back to Charlton. Hullier missed one quarterly payment of £27,000, and Glixton claimed the rent for the whole lease plus interest, now some £600,000. He supported the taxman's winding-up petition. One hope for Charlton's survival rests with Chief Nzeribi, a Nigerian entrepreneur based in Mayfair, who's trying to put together a consortium to take over the club. Brought onto the board by Hullier, he quickly resigned in protest at the way the club was run.
I suggested more than 10 ways we could have saved money, but they didn't want to have, to hear any one of that. In the boardroom, we were still serving drinks lavishly. There were more than 8 or 9 dishes of, light refreshments every Saturday afternoon. And I said, my God, we don't need all of this. In the boardroom alone, we have three telephone lines. There were 2 secretaries. Now, I am not saying that those small savings could have saved the club, but they could have helped.
And the club that stands to lose more than most, if that happens, is Chelsea. They've already played Charlton twice and taken 4 points out of 6, so they'll be hardest hit at the top of the table. Unlike Chelsea, Sheffield Wednesday drop only 1 point, having drawn with Charlton the only time that they've met. But at the other end of the table, the effect on relation-threatened Crystal Palace and Fulham is beneficial. They've both played Charlton only once and lost, so other clubs at the foot of the table suffer more. From Charlton's ground now, the Valley, Mike Calvin has this report for us.
Late this afternoon, Charlton Football Club looked and felt like a soccer graveyard. Manager Lenny Lawrence and the office staff refused to comment, but there was an air of bewilderment that the long struggle for survival appears to be over. Once crowds of 70,000 watched First Division football at the Valley, but this afternoon tradition counted for nothing. Charlton couldn't settle their tax debts and so became the first league club to go to the wall since Accrington Stanley in 1962. It was the 11th time the club had gone to the High Court to try and ward off bankruptcy. But the Inland Revenue refused to accept Charlton chairman Mark Hullier's offer to wipe out the debts in instalments. Hullier plans to appeal tomorrow morning, but the chance of league football being played again at the Valley appears slight. A saviour is required, and the only hope on the horizon tonight is that former chairman Richard Collins will mount a rescue bid with a better...
Charlton Athletic, the first.
What brought it down was unpaid tax of £160,000. Charlton's chairman insisted tonight that the club was dead but not buried. But the unpaid tax is said to be only a fraction of the club's total debts. Charlton is only the fourth Football League club to face financial collapse and the first since Accrington Stanley in 1962. David Cass reports.
With a team lying 8th in the second division and still hoping for promotion, Charlton, unlike Accrington Stanley, is no footballing failure. But the players claim they haven't been paid for a month, and there are other alleged debts of more than £1 million. The chairman was shocked when the High Court ran out of patience, but he's still determined to fight on.
What I've been trying to do is be positive, be constructive, to try and overcome the decision that was made today, and that is that we will be making an application on Thursday for a rescission of today's decision, which basically means that during the course of the next 24 hours, we have to come to some agreement or payment or understanding, call it what you like, with the Inland Revenue.
Can you raise the readies to pay in full by Thursday?
That is highly unlikely, quite frankly. If we were able to raise the readies by Thursday, we would have raised them by today.
Which all points to the demise of this once great club. Charlton went to Wembley for their second consecutive FA Cup final in 1947, and they won. In those days, they could fill Wembley and the Valley with crowds of 75,000 people. Nowadays, even a reasonably successful team cannot fill the terraces. And tonight, Charlton's pressures are even greater than the High Court's order. The Football League says that if a long-term future is not guaranteed within 48 hours, the club will be expelled.
For Saturday's league match, Lenny Lawrence, his players, ground staff and the fans have been waiting. So too was the coach to take them to Blackburn, to the match that's now been postponed. Simon Neve has been talking to the people at the Valley.
And why is it important for you to come?
Well, Charlton are important to me, that's why I came. As I say, I was saying earlier on, I just love the club and I just don't want them to close down. And I'm still, even though that news has come through, I'm still not banking on anything until I hear it.
What sort of an afternoon has it been for you and the other players?
Well, a worrying one. We were told to report at 2:30 for training and then to travel to Blackburn. But there was no news from the court hearing, so we've had to hold on, and we've just found out now that the league have postponed the game and that there hasn't been anything from the courts other than it's been postponed until Monday.
Look, are you disappointed that you're not...
Very disappointed, very disappointed. They're good lads, you know, all of them, and it's very sad about this.
You might still be driving them.
Oh, yes, I hope so. True, I hope we do anyway. I'll be here, so will the coach.
Let Charlton play anyway to the end of the season, because all these away teams are going to lose revenue anyway. And surely that they must have something to say about it, all the revenue that they're going to lose.
As soon as that news comes through, I'm either going to celebrate or shoot myself.
If not actually kicking. Charlton's game at Blackburn today postponed to buy more time for a takeover. So yesterday the team coach took the players nowhere. Players who at the moment aren't getting any wages.
No, and if we play Blackburn on Tuesday, they won't be paid by then either, I wouldn't think. If the thing is done on Monday, I would imagine that by the time they take to actually get organised, it'll probably be the end of the week at the earliest before they get paid. But they've indicated to me that they're quite happy to do that, providing they get paid eventually.
I think the only bitterness the players have is the fact that there's probably been people prepared to take over the club right the way from the start of the season. But Mr. Hullier has sort of dragged things out and possibly hasn't given the new consortium enough time really to find the funds to please the Football League. And maybe with this postponement it may give them another 48 hours or so you know, to meet the demands. But as I said, there have been people waiting to come in and take the club over, but now they've come in, they've had to try and sort it out in the last 2 days, which possibly hasn't been enough time for them.
How are you going to spend your Saturday afternoon now?
Worrying.